In the communities and ecosystem, we will be discussing about the ecosystems and species diversity. So, what will happen if the diversity of a species is changed in an ecosystem? How would it be affected? So there are the three important hypotheses in which we will be discussing about. So removal of certain species from an ecosystem would have little or no effect on the functioning of that ecosystem, and that is called redundant species hypothesis. So that means that species was already over the limit, that species was not actually needed in that ecosystem. And here you can see the possible relationship between the number of species in an ecosystem and its rate of function. Here we are seeing the graphical representation of redundant species hypothesis, where at high species density, some species can be lost without affecting the ecosystem function. So number of species, they are not increasing linearly, and rate of ecosystem function is normal. Another alternative model is based on the supposition that all species are equally important to the ecosystem function. And this is called linear relationship model. And in this model, in which case the loss of each species render it a little less efficient, and this is the linear relationship model. So every time a species is lost, as all the species are having equal share in maintaining that ecosystem, what will happen? There will be decrease in this in the efficiency of that ecosystem. So this is the linear model, the graphical representation of it, in which each species is equal in functional importance, and the loss of any species reduces the efficiency of ecosystem function accordingly. And then there is a third hypothesis, which is the rivet hypothesis. A third option is that the certain species play key role in the ecosystem, and when they are lost, there is a sudden drop in a capacity of the ecosystem to function. So that means when a key species is lost, the efficiency of ecosystem will be lost, that you can see in the graphical representation more clearly. There will be dip in the efficiency of the ecosystem, and this is sometimes referred to as the rivet hypothesis. So here you can see the rivet hypothesis in a graphical representation, in which certain species are critical in supporting the ecosystem function. So which are rivets? Rivets are the, these are mechanical tools which are keeping two things together. Maybe some sheets of iron that are kept together with the help of rivets. So there are some species which act as rivet to keep the ecosystem together. So loss of these species has a disproportionate effect on the ecosystem function. So there are some functional types among the species as well. So role that species plays within an ecosystem can vary in importance to general ecosystem function, and it is possible to divide species into functional types. So there are certain important functional species, there are less important functional species according to their physiological and ecological capacities. For example, the plants are the most important functional types of the species in an ecosystem. Why? Because they are producer, and whole ecosystem is dependent on the plants because they are the producers. And what are their physiological and ecological capacities? The physiological capacities are that they can do the photosynthesis. Now there is concept of stability, that if an ecosystem should remain stable. So British ecologist Charles Elton first proposed in the 1950s that a more complex and rich ecosystem should also be more stable. So a rich and diverse ecosystem, it will be stable and less prone to violent fluctuations such as those caused by the epidemic, disease or pest or outbreaks. So everything that disturbs an ecosystem, it would be less potent if ecosystem is complex and rich. So the stability can be defined in terms of inertia or resistance to change, that an ecosystem resists to change, it does not change. But there is another alternative explanation in which a stable ecosystem could be defined as one which rapidly returns to its original state following disturbance. So disturbance does affect it, but it reaches to its normal state afterwards. So the concept of this will be further explained. This can be explained in the basis of resilience as a basis of defining stability. So resilient, if an ecosystem is resilient, it will come back to its original space after the disturbance.